Hi there, I'm Clifford Bates, and welcome once again to Reading Aristotle's Politics. Today we are kind of looking at, again, Book 8. We're looking at Chapter 5 in Book 8, the last book of the Politics, dealing with education. Today, Chapter 5 is going to be concerning music. Let's turn to Chapter 5 right away. So, concerning music, we raised certain questions, questions earlier in the argument. And it will be well to take them up again now and develop them in order to provide a sort of prelude to the argument one might make in expressing views about it. In other words, this is going to be a prelude. He's going to take those earlier arguments about music in a chapter or two before, and now he's going to make this is going to be kind of a prelude and develop them in order to provide a prelude to an argument what might make expressing views about music, right? And remember, music is not only just music as we understand that, but also music, poetry, lyric. For it is not easy to distinguish what its power is power, the music, power of music, or for the sake of what one should partake in it, whether for the sake of play or in rest, as in the case of sleeping and drinking for themselves. These things do not belong to among the excellent things. Sleeping and drinking are not excellent, but they are present and at the same time put a stop to care, right? As Euripides has it. Hence, music too is assigned to these as all and all. Sleep, drinking, music are treated in a similar fashion, and some place dancing among them as well, or whether it is rather to be supposed that music contributes something to virtue, right? So is it something like something that puts something to care, to rest, right? It's like something it provides us with. Sleep helps us recover. Drinking helps us restore ourselves. Not alcohol, but drink, this idea of things. But it also gives pleasure, right? This idea. So therefore, this question here is: are these things to be treated in similar fashion? In some places, dance well. In others, it is rather to be supposed that music contributes to virtue, right? Excellence. The assumption being that just as gymnastic makes the body a certain quality, music so also is music capable of making the character of a certain quality, of habituating it to be capable of enjoying in correct fashion. In other words, the music shapes the character, shapes the mind to enjoy certain things, right? And whether it contributes in some way to pastime and prudence, as music education teach also not only the pastime, which is leisure, able to enjoy leisure, and prudence, exercise the ability to exercise judgment. For this is to be posited as the third of the things mentioned. In other words, is it not only is it just simply pastime, something to enjoy, something to rest, to recover, or is it something that um, uh, inculcates you to virtue? It makes it possible to do a certain virtue, right? And does it a certain quality of habituating a correct fashion, right? Right. In other words, does it treat you to be able to do things? Does it make the mind? As gymnastic makes the body, this makes the mind or capable of habituating to certain quality, to virtues, habituating to be certain virtue, and or whether it contributes some way to pastime or prudence in itself. In other words, so therefore, is it something to do with resting, like a case of rest? It's something to recover, to allow you to recover, and pleasant of this sense, right? Second, is it a means to achieving virtue? Does it help you learn certain things about virtue, and particularly that, or does it contribute in some way to pastime and prudence in itself? In that sense, right? Does it contribute in some way to pastime and prudence in itself? This makes possible pastime and prudence, right? Now that the young should not be educated for the sake of play is not unclear. In other words, that now that the young should not be educated for the sake of play is not unclear. So it's uh, they do not play when they're learning, as learning is accompanied by pain. So therefore, they're learning. That should be aimed at learning. In other words, they're not being educated for the sake of play. They're educated. In your learning, therefore, there's a kind of play. It's not play. There's a pain towards it, right? On the other hand, neither is it fitting to assign pastime to children or those of such ages. In other words, pastime is they need discipline, for the end is not suited to anything incomplete. In other words, to be able to enjoy what he says pastime is proper leisure, is that you have to be adults. You have to have something complete, and therefore the child is still incomplete. It's growing. It's developing. Both the body. It's growing in terms of the body. It's growing in terms of its character, and i.e. the exercise of its virtue, its character, and its ability, but also its mind, growing in terms of its mind and capacity. So therefore, this is not fitting. On the other hand, neither is it fitting to assign pastime to children. Right? A play at a very early age, but education is a kind of educating. Education is a kind of still pain. Learning. Learning is kind of something's going on here. Right? There's a discipline. There's a discipline to this. Right. On the other hand, neither is it fitting to. I said that already, but perhaps it is might be held that what children seriously attend to is for the sake of their play once they have become men and complete. In other words, what the things have been educated towards, right? They are seriously attended to. This prepares them for the sake of play once they have become men and complete. But if someone, but if something of this sort is the case, for the sake of would they? Okay, in other words, what what would they have to learn themselves, and not have a share in the learning and the pleasure through the performing of it, like the kings of Persia and the Medes. In other words, okay, this is a star sentence. Let's go. Okay. In other words, but perhaps might be held that children's series attend to is for the sake of their play, right? Once they have become men and complete. But if something of this sort is the case, right? For the sake of what would they have to learn it? Why will they have to learn it themselves? Okay, and not have a share in learning and the pleasures through others performing it, like the kings. In other words, the kings of the Persians and Medes don't do it themselves; they watch other people do it. So why is it necessary for them to do it? The argument is the question. The question is, why is it necessary for the children? If this is for the sake that they are able not to, they don't get it now, but they get it that they're able to do it later, use it in life later, and play and things like this. Then what is this? What's going on here? Why just can't they obtain it through watching other people do it? Indeed, what results will necessarily be better if performed by those who have made this very thing their work in art than by those who are concerning themselves with it only for so much time as requiring learning. In other words, the performers of these things should be done by experts, the argument is. Those who have trained on it. Wouldn't it be better that the people who are experts of these things, in other words, should we engage in these activities ourselves, and rather, like, should we play the game and do this training and like this? Should we just watch the experts doing it, the people who are professional doing it? Right? This is a dispute. In other words, the example would be, let's say, sports. Kids playing sports. Is it necessary that kids playing sports? Wouldn't it be better having them watch the professional people play it? Right? Why? Because those who are concerned with them only for so much time as to require so much learning, right? Whereas if they're experts, and if they should exert themselves personally in such matter, they would themselves have to take up the activity of. In other words, if they're going to do these things, they'd have to take up the activity, and that's not. They don't need to take up that activity. The example is cooking, right? The example he talks about. If they should themselves exert themselves personally in such matters. They would themselves have to take up activities of cooking. But this would be absurd, right? This whole question, right? So this should you do it? Should they? Should the problem here is that should the people just watch the people doing these excellent things, or should they engage in them? The reason why you engage in them is what? Not that you're going to be what the learning the art as an expert, okay? Rather that you're able to use the arts and use them for the purposes of not to be the great, not to be the super cook, but just to know how to be able to cook, right? This idea of the example, to have take up the activity of cooking, not going to become a cook. That'd be servile. I mean, learning to be the cook for the sake of being a cook. This is not. In other words, why are you learning to cook? You're learning to cook that you can able to enjoy it. You don't do it that you're able to. This is your task and your serve. You're doing it for the sake of something. You're doing it so that you're able to enjoy it. That it gives you pleasure. It gives you sustenance. It gives you things like able to do other things, right? But not being a cook to be able to cook for others for the sake of them feeding them and getting employment. No, this is the wrong kind of being a cook. You're the master cooking. You specialize in things that your reputation. You're the artisan. No, you're not becoming a cook to do that. You're not engaging in this. That you're able so that you become the artisan or an actor. That is servile in that sense, and as he argued earlier, the kind of education and the kind of habituation and things that's being aimed at is not that you become servile, but become free. Right? This is why it's absurd here. The same question arises even if it is capable of making their characters better. So, in other words, even if these arts and these activities make their character better. But again, the question is, for why should they learn these things themselves and not both enjoy correctly and being able to judge by listening to others? Like the Spartans. Watch the Spartans. Watch them. Watch those other ones. Can't you just do it by watching them happening? No. For these, although they do not learn themselves, nevertheless are capable of judging correctly, or so they assert, which tunes are decent and which are not. Okay, this is note 17. The melee refers here to the various forms of musical modes and harmonies rather than to the songs with words. So you're able to know that we're able to know that the turns are harmonious or not harmonious, right? This, in other words, so therefore there's an argument here. That you don't have to do it themselves. You don't have to train them themselves. You just have to train them about what other people have done. So there's an argument here. You don't have to do the things. You just have them watch what other people have done. The same argument applies as well as if it to be practiced with a view, to well-being and liberal pastime. Why should they learn themselves and not have the benefit of others practicing it? Okay. Whereas this argument not only about virtues and character things of skills and this, but also of regarding the well-being and liberal pastimes, right? Why should they learn it themselves and not have the benefit of watching others practice it? We may permit ourselves to investigate the conception we have about the gods. Zeus himself does not sing and play the lyre for our poets. But we call persons of this sort vulgar, and the activity one not of belonging to a man, unless one who is drunk or playing. Right. This is the real man, enor. Right. This is of an enor of a man, a real man, enor belonging to a man. It's like the vulgar. Look at the gods. The gods don't do these things. And we don't even. He's saying that the people who playing the flute and playing these things, these activities are not really like this, right? But perhaps these things must be investigated later. Now, this is a question. This is 8:6. This is the next chapter. Uh, um, um, but we must first seek to answer is whether music is to be placed in education or not, And so we stop this other question, this question about the vulgar. Should we just follow other people? Why should we learn something? What could we just benefit from this? He's going to postpone that question here. But instead, we must first seek to answer whether music is to be placed in education or not, and what power it has of the three we have raised. It has of the three we raised questions about whether education, play, or pastime. In other words, how does music, is it whether education, is it play or pastime? It is reasonable to arrange it under all of them, he says. And it evidently partakes in all. For play, it is for play is for the sake of rest, and rest must necessarily be pleasant, as as it is sort of a healing of the pain coming from exertions. And pastime, it is agreed, should involve not only the element of beautiful, the nobility of the beautiful, right, the kalos, but also a pleasure. So not only that, but not only nobility, but also pleasure. For being happy derives of both of these things, the kalos and the pleasant. Okay, happy, being idona. Okay, happy is both something that is beautiful and noble and pleasurable, pleasant. It's not painful in that sense. But all of us assert that music belongs among the most pleasant things, right? The most pleasant things, both by itself and with melody. Musis, at any rate, asserts that singing is the most pleasantest thing for mortals. Hence, it is reasonable to expect it to be brought into a social gathering, right? And pastimes, as being capable of providing good cheer. In other words, 20. Musaeus was a semi legendary figure who various archaic poems and sayings were ascribed. An epic language of the quotation of singing, the Aideon, almost refers to the reciting of poetry to a simple musical accompaniment, by a professional bard, the eidos. But Aristotle seems to use the quotation to support the view that singing in the ordinary sense is most pleasant. We're singing, singing. I say this, when you sing, it's pleasant. It does give you pleasure when you enjoy it as a pastime. You're doing it. It gives you feel it. You do feel it. There's something uplifting when you sing in that sense. When you're singing, there's something when you're in a song and you're doing it. There's something uplifting. You feel it. You're uplifted. You soar, right? In the ordinary sense, is most pleasant. The view he's implying, correcting, the view he is implicitly uh, correcting would be the view that poetry as such and that music by itself, pious ultra literary bear, is the truly pleasant element of music generally. Most translations of this passage wrongly assume that the phrase by music itself refers to purely instrumental music. This is the term melodia, literally tune singing, appears here to mean the musical setting, a connotative primary choral setting, and the sort of singing characteristic of social gathering of ancient time. I mean, he refers to his book on this thing. I think he's right here. This is not about music as learning how to play, but rather singing. I think this is the point he's trying to say here. The singing of gathering, the men who gather and they cheer. This is they sing at the pit. Warriors sing, and and on account and on so that on account on this account, as well as one might conceive that younger persons should be educated. In other words, they should have educated, know how to do it. In other words, if this is so pleasant and people are going to do it in their pastime, they should know how to do it, right? For those pleasures that are harmless are fitting not only with a view to the end, but also with the view to rest. In other words, why they're doing it, why is it being done, and a view to the end, why are they doing it, but also with a view to rest. And since it happens that human beings rarely attain the end, but frequently rest and make use of the music idea, the end of music is the being an actor to that. But no, but also you can use it to rest. It's to enjoy. So therefore, there's two reasons. The end of music might be to make poetry and do things. the artisan. But the use of it also may be to what? What? To rest, to enjoy it, to recover, to have pleasure, right? And since it happens that human beings rarely attain the end, but frequently rest and make use of play, not only for some purposes beyond, but also on account of pleasure, right? Beyond some useful purposes, some purpose beyond the play itself, but also on regards to the pleasure it gives them. It would be a useful thing to have them rest on occasion in the midst of pleasures that derive from this music making, singing, in that sense, right? But it is. But it has happened to human beings that they make play an end, right? But humans being make play the end. That the purpose of play is playing, right? The music of playing, the performance, right? For the end too, perhaps involves a certain pleasure, though not any chance pleasure. And while seeking the former, they take the latter for it, on account of it having a certain similarity to the ends of actions. For the end is choice-worthy not for the sake of anything that will be, and pleasures of this sort are not for the sake of anything of the sort are not for the sake of anything that will be, but of things that have been, such as exertion and pain. So it's not aiming towards something else, but rather it has been addressing, in other words, it's but of the things that have been, right? Exertions and pain. One might plausibly conceive this to be the reason, then, for their seeking happiness through these pleasures, though not as far as sharing in music is concerned. It is not on this account only, but also because music is useful with a view to rest, as it seems. So therefore, it's not becoming an expert to be able to do it. You're being able to do professional at it, and to do it greatly. But it's there to help you rest, to help recover, to restrain, to enjoy, to kind of recover. It's not aimed. Again, this is what he's saying. The end is not something that will be done in the future, but rather to kind of restore what has been done, responding to what has been done. But this idea of that exertion and pain to recover from it. We must investigate whether this result is not accidental and its nature is not more honorable than what accords with the needs mentioned. And one should not only partake in the common pleasures that derive from it, of which all have a perception. For music involves a natural pleasure, something natural sweetness. There's a natural pleasure here. So I need a little water. My throat's hoarse for a second. It's a long chapter. And what music involves a natural pleasure. Hence, the practice is agreeable to all ages and characters. But see whether in some ways it contributes to the character of the soul. So to what degree does it, that we see that it's pleasurable and we all do enjoy it, but to what degree does it add to the character? He's saying this would be clear if we become. This would be clear if we become of a certain quality in our character on account of it. In other words, it would be clear that it's really useful. Because of music, our character improves, right? But what do we become of a certain? But that we do become of a certain quality is evident through many things, and not the least through the tunes of Olympus. For it is agreed that these make souls inspired, and inspiration is a passion of the character that's connected with the soul. Olympus was a semi-legendary personage who said to have lived in Perea. This is 8th century BC. The tunes ascribed to him were solo pieces for flute, apparently of the Paragraphian mode. Inspiration here translates the Greek outheousemonos. inspiration is tied to like is theos, the god, in theos, amos, inspire, to inspire this. Um, there is something interesting with this. In other words, it's connected with the soul. That there is something about the tunes of Olympus that inspires a passion in the soul. So it moves the soul. There's something about music that moves the soul. He says, mind, the passions, the thumos, the body. Okay, and we know this that music does the harmonies and tunes do affect the physical body, right? Further, all who listen to imitations come to experience similar passions, right? Music, like this is about Beethoven, the harmonies and things can evoke feeling, evoke motion, evoke pleasure, pain, right? And similar passions, even apart from the rhyme and tunes themselves, right? Again, this is 22. The text meaning of the sentence has been disputed, but it's more seems to be likely that poetic imitation in the broader sense are what is being meant here. So not only the harmonies, but also the themes are raising questions, poetic themes of this. A passion raises passions, and apart from the rhymes, in other words, the themes and the things that's being talked about raises passions, feelings. So the content is moves as well, right? The theme of poetry and the lines, not only the rhythms. Okay, the rhythms do affect emotions, but also the content of what is being said and evoked in this might bring memory and remember things, right? And that we understand it and we feel those things. It brings up memories and feelings of the past. Since music belongs accidentally among pleasant things, and virtue is connected with enjoying in a correct fashion and feeling affection and hatred. It is therefore clear that one should learn and become habituated to nothing so much as the judging in correct fashion of and enjoying respectable characters and noble actions. In other words, you need to know that since music accidentally does these things. It does these things, and that you should know how to enjoy these things in a correct fashion and and also knowing how to feel affection and hatred in a correct fashion. And therefore, it is clear that one should learn and become habituated to nothing so much as to judging in correct fashion, knowing able to judge and enjoying, in fashion of enjoying what respectable characters and noble actions, and beautiful actions, being able to look at to know what is beautiful and to be able to and enjoy the noble and the beautiful, and not only beautiful the characters of the people that what the actions of the things that motivate their actions and how they do their actions, right? For in rhythm and tunes there are likeness particularly close to the genuine natures of anger and gentleness, and further of courage and moderation of all things opposite to these, and of the other things pertaining to character. In other words, in harmony, there is something tied to the characters of the soul of anger, passion, gentleness, courage, and moderation. All the harmonies and rhythms have a connection to the parts of the functions of the soul, anger and courage, gentle moderation, right? And things that pertain to character. This is clear from the facts. We are altered in so when we listen to such things. But habituation to feel pain and enjoyment in similar things is close to being in the same condition relative to truth. So therefore, if we're habituated to feel pain and we're habituated to get enjoyment from similar things, this is the same as that whether it's true for this. So therefore, in other words, habit is a kind of exercise. Is it natural or we've been habituated? This question, right? This is what he's saying. For example, if someone enjoys looking at an image of something for no other reason than the form itself, then the very study of the image of which he studies, must necessarily be pleasant. If I look at something and I see it and I just look at it and it's pleasure to look at, then this is what? This is the very study of the image of which he studies must necessarily be pleasant. It happens that no likeness of character is present in other perceptible things, and in things touched or taste, for example, where in visible things it is present only. It is present only to a slight degree. So therefore, it's things that evoke the. In other words, he says, touch and taste. Some, this it's there, but it's not to the same. In other words, it happens that no likeness of character is present in the other perceptible things, touch and things touch and taste, for example. In other words, the certain doesn't lead to certain characters, while and visible things, the things of the sight, sound seems to be the one that's sound, music, harmony seems to be the what is powerful. If images have it to a slight, while the visible things it is present only to a slight degree. So um, a taste and touch, it's not. It doesn't seem to be as strong to character. This sense of his music. How, in other words, harmony does this. What we can say, we get anger, we get pleasure. That images can hit on that, but not as powerful as music, sound. But taste and touch, not so much. He's not intense. This is what Marshall McLuhan's be hot and cold mediums. Touch and taste are kind of it's maybe too complex. Sound is really intense. It's hot, a hot medium for these passions. But in other words, the issues of the passions of character. Okay. Oops, we were interrupted. I saw it. I apologize. We're going to finish this up soon. So in other words, this idea here, this like degree, this touching and tasting is going to be there. Now he says, but for habituation to feel pain, enjoyment, and similar things. Okay, opposite things. Did I skip something? I hate this when I this. Yeah, so character has noble actions. This is what happens when I lost things. Anger, gentleness. We talked about this. It is clear from the facts that we are altered in soul as we listen to such things, music, right? But in habituation to feel pain and enjoyment of similar things. We're talking about looking at it, right? This is that thing here. So we did here as happening. No likeness of characters present, perceptible things. In other words, um, for example, if one enjoys looking at an image for no other reason than do this, okay, that's why it must be pleasant, right? So the visible things. He says, therefore, we talk about taste and touch doesn't do it. So therefore, this is we ended up right about here, right? For there are figures of this sort only through the small extent, and that all participate in this sort of perception. And further, these things are not likenesses of character, but of figures and colors that exist of this sort, that are rather inclinations, indications of character. In other words, they're not, things are not likeness of character, but rather they're indications of character. And these are only as manifested by the body when they are in the grip of passion. So in other words, their bodies in passion. They're being invoked. The passions are moved. Something is moved in them. Passions, desire is moved, and they connect. This passion connects them to those things, right? But to the extent that there is a difference in connection with the study of these things as well, the young should not study the paintings of Pantheon, but of those of Polongus, or any other painter sculptor who is expert with respect to character. In other words, 23 here. This is little known about this, but the argument is these are probably little pornographic. I should be. In other words, I should be just exaggerated. Whereas this idea here is that the idea should be that the poet should focus, rather the sculptures in this thing should focus on paintings of this guy, but those of this guy. And the argument is that a sculptor who's expert in respect to the character, showing their character, showing noble character, showing noble things, not just perverse pictures, right? In tunes by themselves, however, there are imitations of characters. The music imitates characters, happy, sad things. It is evident the nature of the harmonies diverged at the outset, so that those listening are in a different state and not in the same condition in relation to them, right? In the relation of some, for example, the so-called mixed Lydian, they are in a state of more grief and apprehension. So the mixed Lydians are in, this is sad, grief, apprehension. In relation to others, for example, the relaxed harmonies, they are softer of mind. They are middling, and some state in relation to one above all. This being what the Dorians alone among the harmonies is held to make them, the Dorian, and the Perithian makes them inspired. So Dorian discipline, right? Um, in that sense, maybe anger. Perithian makes them inspired, right? This is what those who have philosophized in connection with this sort of education argue, and beautifully. Those who philosophize concerning this sort of education, music education, and finally, they find proofs for their arguments in the facts themselves. Now, this is 24. Greek music in the classical period was based not on a uniform scale, but on a modal system deriving from divergent characteristics of different sorts of musical instruments. The word harmony usually meant the tuning of the scale of a particular sort of instrument. It was then applied derivatively to the musical style associated with particular instruments as used for a particular occasion. A tune, a melos, is properly a melodic realization of a particular harmony. The common translation song is misleading. It is in its implication is that the vocal elements is necessarily present. The notion that different harmonies affect the soul differently seems to have been originated among the Pythagoreans. It was further developed by Damon, the musical authority for Plato, and Aristotle, the student of Aristotle. Little is known of the characteristics of the various harmonies. Perhaps the most fullest ancient accounts of Plato's Republic and Aristotle's Problems. Right, this is what Aristotle and the Problems and Plato's and the Republic is the most fluent account of the question of music. So therefore, this idea that this different songs, different harmonies will lead to different type of characters, different emphasis. That some more milder, some more moderate, some more agitated. So in other words, this is the different tones in here, the connection between these things. Things stand. In other words, and then he adds this thing: thing stands in the same manner in connection with rhyme, rhythm as well. Some of them have a character that is more steadfast, others a character marked by movement, and of those, some of a movement of a cruder and other of a more liberal. So harmony is one thing, but other rhythms. Some are going to be more steadfast, others have character of a character marked by movement. Of this movement, some are crude, some are more free, some are more vulgar, in that sense, crude and vulgar, and the others are more free, liberal. And let's paragraph, right? It is evident from these things, then, that music can render the character of a soul of a certain quality. If it is capable of doing this, clearly it must be employed, and the young must be educated in it. So therefore, this is the reason why education of the young must be. The teaching of music is fitting in relation to the nature of those of such an age. For on account of their age, the young do not voluntarily put up with anything that is not sweet, but music by nature belongs among the sweetened things. Moreover, there seems to be a certain affinity on the part of harmonies and rhythms. Hence, many of the wise assert that the soul is a harmony, or that it involves harmony. Now, what's important here, this is very interesting, that music is one of the sweet by nature. Music by nature belongs among the sweetened things, the sweet by nature. Like the other thing that he mentions in the politics, back all the way back in book one, will be life itself. Life, mere life. Mere life is naturally sweet. As long as it's not endeavored by harsh pain and suffering. Life itself is a naturally sweet thing. But also music. Music in life is tied as something that is naturally sweet. It has a sweetness, as a by nature. So music has something by nature that gives a sweetness. And and the young need something. The young will not put up with something that is not sweet. So therefore, music is thus fit. Teaching the young music is a very suitable thing because it's sweet. There's a sweetness to the music. There's something pleasurable about it. Something that therefore teaching music of fitting relation to those of such an age because of the age they're young. They don't put up with anything that is not sweet. They need the sweet. Right? So he says, hence, many of the wise assert either that the soul is a harmony or that it involves harmony. Right? This is 25, the Pythagoreans, right? And Plato's Simmias, Plato's character Simmias and Phaedo, respectively, argued this, right? So let's stop here. We'll look at chapter 6 of this question next time we look. So we finished chapter 5. I stop here on this. If you have any comments or questions, put them below. When I see them, I will comment on it. It's been a very long chapter, so I apologize. We had a break. We had my wife come in there and said, interrupted, and I kind of stopped it, froze it, and then I lost my place and I had to rearrange myself. So I apologize. I didn't want to start over again because I want to get this done to some degree. Then what is happening here? So okay. So next time we meet, we'll look at chapter 6. So if you have any comments, questions in this chapter about music and harmony and music education, please put it below. And once I get it, I'll get to it. If you liked it, like it. If you liked it, like it. Share it on social media. Get it out there. If you've not subscribed, subscribe. If you have subscribed already, get others to subscribe so we can grow the channel some. If you didn't like it, you didn't think something wrong, or something had a problem with something, you didn't like it, you want to say no, so put it down. But please put the comment and what's wrong and why you brought it down. If you follow this and you want to follow me on social media further, you can follow the links to my social media links below. If you want to help what I'm doing and contribute to doing this, you can do it through the links and subscribe to our Patreon below. But I understand, okay. Another way you can do it is buy my book, Aristotle's a notebook for Aristotle's politics. It's a commentary. It's a truck of this that you're able to. It's not a commentary. It is a study guide. It's like Cliff's Notes to politics. It's not just mere summaries. It offers some summaries. It's structured book by book, chapter by chapter. It gives not only an overview of the politics, but then look at each book and each chapter, highlighting the certain major themes or issues, sketching out the things, giving outlines, charts and graphs of things, trying to get a better understanding of it, allowing you to get, to not only the issues in stake and the debate between Aristotle and other authors, not only of the past, of his time and before, but also in the future, in the issue of political thought and political science. So this is useful for students of studying the politics and studying political science, of political thought in that sense. But it's not a commentary. Again, it's Cliff Notes, a study guide. It's designed so that you can put your notes in it, and after every book of the politics that I cover, there's an empty place, a page that is full page of both front and back, that you can put your own notes. This is again done for students both at the beginning level and at the higher level. Well, that's it. If you have a good day, well, thank you for being much with us. Next time we'll look at chapter 6 in book 8. Take care and have a good day. Bye bye.